Reasoning Through the Bible has come out with another video 5 days ago, and the title of the video is Does the Bible Command a Woman to Marry Her R-wordist? I don't know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube, so I'm going to guess that that word is probably not allowed, but a forced sexual intercourse. An arist. You know what I'm saying, and I will say arist for the rest of this video because I'm not trying to get my video taken down or anything like that. So um I'm curious what these two are going to have to say about it because they defended slavery and genocide in their last series. So I'm going to guess that they're probably going to try to defend this one in some way too. But the short answer to their question, does the Bible command a woman to marry her arist, is no. The Bible does not command a woman to marry her arist. It commands an arist to marry his victim. I'm curious what they're going to say. They're probably going to say that this is some type of protection for the woman because biblical culture, the culture surrounding 1500 years ago before Jesus, 3500 years ago, the Moses culture, it was absolutely disgusting and barbaric. So I want to read this passage in its entirety before we go into the video. So I apologize if it's a little bit boring to just sit here and listen to me read. It's not super long, but it's important because the Bible is disgusting. It's so disgusting. And in their last series, they went into all the ways about how all the laws are applied equally between everybody, and everybody dances in the flowers all night and all day, and it's wonderful. But of course, that's not true. And we're going to find that out in this passage, Deuteronomy 22, the rules regarding forced R-ing. Excuse me. So I'm going to guess that they're going to leave a lot of this stuff out, and maybe for good reason, because it doesn't necessarily have to do with R-ing somebody, but it's all in the same passage, Deuteronomy 22. Deuteronomy 22? Yeah. Deuteronomy 22, 1 through 30, roughly. So let's read these real quick, and then we're going to see how they try to defend this disgusting practice in the Bible. So various laws. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope, it's not 1 through. It's 13 through 30. Okay. Let me clear my throat real quick. Here we go. If a man takes a wife after sleeping with her, dislikes her, and slanders her and gives her a bad name, saying, I married this woman, but when I approached her, I did not find proof of virginity. Now, mind you, and this is important, virginity only applies to women. They didn't care about male virginity. They cared about female virginity. It's all disgusting. Don't get me wrong. It's all gross. Use your imagination, okay? I did not find proof of virginity. Then the young woman's father and mother shall bring to the town elders at the gate proof that she was a virgin. Her father will say to the elders, I gave my daughter in marriage to this man, but he disliked her. Now he has slandered her, he said. I did not find your daughter to be a virgin, but here is proof of my daughter's virginity. Then her parents shall display the cloth. It's gross. It's really gross. Before the town elders. And the elders shall take and punish him. Is his punishment death? No. They shall fine him 100 shekels. Now, remember, in the last one, if a bull gores an ox, or if a bull gores, if an ox gores a slave, the slave master gets 30 shekels. In this case, if somebody says that a woman is not a virgin and she actually was, this is a fine of 100 shekels. Simply an accusation that somebody wasn't a virgin, you pay 100 shekels. If you're a slave and you get gored by an ox, you only have to pay 30 shekels to the slave master, not even the slave that was gored. I'll get off the slavery point. They shall fine him 100 shekels and give them to the young woman's father, not the woman who was slandered, But the father, because this man has given an Israelite virgin a bad name, the father gets paid. She shall continue to be his wife. Aw, that's nice. This guy doesn't like her so much to the point that he's accusing her at the risk of being fined 100 shekels of silver. He dislikes her this much, but she has to stay married to him. He must not divorce her as long as he lives. If, however, the charge is true and no proof of the young woman's virginity can be found, she shall be brought to the door of her father's house, and there the men of the town shall stone her to death. But the laws are applied equally. You know what I'm. If she's not a virgin when she marries somebody, she is to be. People are going to take rocks and they're going to throw them at her until she is dead. The Bible is disgusting. You must purge this evil from among you. If a man is found to be sleeping with another man's wife, both the man who slept with her and the woman must die. There's another instance where you're to be put to death. Adultery. You must purge this evil. If a man happens to meet now this is where you got to read the language very carefully, because the word virgin is key here, because like I said, they hold virginity on this disgusting pedestal. If a man happens to meet in town a virgin pledged to be married, and he sleeps with her, you shall take both of them to the gate of that town and stone them to death. Now, this is consensual intercourse, as far as I can tell. Okay, so I know a lot of people like to take this verse and read it as if she didn't scream loud enough as she was being R-worded. But I think what it's trying to say is that if she wasn't screaming because she was being R-worded, then it was most likely consensual, right? You shall take both of them to the gate and stone them because she wasn't screaming. The man has violated another man's wife. You must purge this evil among you. Now, I can see how you can read into that if she wasn't screaming loud enough, which could in fact be the case. Don't get me wrong. She could very well be getting R-worded and screaming, but nobody heard. And then she would still be put to death after being R-worded. It is the case, but I don't think that's what they were. I don't think that's what they meant in this passage, but it is a logical outcome of having a law like this. All you would have to do is keep her mouth. I don't want to get into it. Use your imagination. It's disgusting. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married, only the man who has done this shall die. Do nothing to the woman. She has committed no sin deserving of death. This case is like that of someone who attacks and murders a neighbor. For the man found the young woman out in the country, and though the betrothed woman screamed, there was no one to rescue her. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married, and R-words her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. Now, mind you, this word virgin, she's no longer a virgin. Her worth is devalued. She's worth less because she was R-worded. The Bible is disgusting. The Bible is disgusting. This is bad. So I'm very curious what they're going to say. And this probably will be a two-part video because I've been going on for already nearly 10 minutes and we haven't even pushed play. But I want to lay the context out there so they're not, you're taking verses out of context. We're reading it all. The Bible is disgusting. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and R-words her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the woman, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her for as long as he lives. I've heard this verse be put in the context that this is a protection for the woman because her worth has been devalued. So now nobody will want to marry her. So she's to be shacked up with the R worder because so it's a protection because now he has to take care of her. After the Bible is disgusting. But yeah, because she's no longer a virgin. Now that's different than another key point to put out here is that if she's married, you know what? No. I'm not gonna go into that. Let's we'll get into it. We'll get into it. I want to start playing this video. We're gonna start playing this video. So let's go.
And we ended last time with some laws that were in the law of Moses that was dealing with sex between people. And all these laws that deal with relations between people and deal with things stolen and making restitution, these are all ways of that God had set up to make sure society functions well and that society functioned in a good and moral way and that they
Careful. Be careful, buddy.
we are
Buddy old pal.
violated at our own peril. Yes, it's true that over in the New Testament, we're not held to keeping the Mosaic law as a qualification for righteousness. Our righteousness comes through Jesus Christ. But these principles that are back here in the Mosaic law are universal principles that add a lot. And since most of this law, Steve, is so ignored, that I find that it's good to go back and look at these things because there's some real good gold nuggets of truth back here that
So there's I went over it all, and this intro is to these verses that I just read, and what he's claiming is that there are good gold nuggets of truth in them.
still today help us get along between people, wouldn't you think?
Yes, and our society, especially here in the United States, many of our early laws were built off of these, the Mosaic law that was outlined here. This was kind of the background and backdrop to it to see where in just a
I disagree.
short, figuratively speaking,
That's for another video.
250 years or so, where we are now, based upon where we were, even at our particular point in time, shows how fast that once we leave God out of the picture and we don't feel that we're responsible to answer to Him for our actions, where man on his own takes it.
Right. And so today we're going to be talking about some issues that have arisen between men and women in regards to sex and premarital sex and even rape. The passage that kicked us off at the end of our last session was in Exodus 22, verse 16, talked about if a man seduced a woman, then what were the consequences? He had to marry her or at least take care of her and couldn't just walk off and abandon her. A similar parallel passage is over in Deuteronomy chapter 22. And so we want to start there today and deal with a question that often comes up simply because in Exodus 22, it deals with a similar thing. So therefore, since this is such a serious and cruel accusation, then we need to deal with it. And it's a widespread question that comes up today is, does the Bible tell us that a woman has to marry her rapist? And so let's go ahead and deal with that, since it's in these passages here that deal with a similar thing to the one we were dealing with. If you have your Bibles, we're going to start in Deuteronomy and then we'll go back to Exodus. So, but Steve, if you could read, we have here Deuteronomy chapter 22, starting in verse 23. And
So as I assumed, and maybe defendably so, they're skipping the rest of that also, the beginning of this, where you're gonna take a lady and kill her because she lied about her virginity. They're gonna skip over that. And to be fair, it doesn't have anything to do with this R wording passage, but I think they should have added that in there because how awful is that? But of course they'll skip over it.
Steve, if you could read down to verse 29.
If there is a girl who is a virgin engaged to a man, and another man finds her in the city and lies with
So they're
her,
using the New American Standard Version. So in some versions, it says, if a man takes hold of a woman, and I don't buy the argument that is some type of consensual, like if two people they're just consensually doing what they do, that he's to marry her. I don't buy it because it says take hold of, and I looked up the word in Hebrew, and it basically means like to seize, to grab, to it's force. And there's a reason that that a lot of translations of the Bible use the word, the R word. And that's because that's what it means. If they're going to go with this whole, well, that doesn't mean it's consensual. No, you're lying. Stop it.
Then you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city, and you shall stone them to death. The girl, because she did not cry out in the city, and the man, because he has violated his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you. But if in the field the man finds the girl who is engaged, and the man forces her and lies with her, then only the man who lies with her shall die. But you shall do nothing to the girl. There is no sin in the girl.
Interesting, because it specifically says if she's engaged. What if she wasn't? What if she was not engaged and she was not a virgin? I'm curious.
Worthy of death. For just as a man rises against his neighbor and murders him, so is this case. When he found her in the field, the engaged girl cried out, but there was no one to save her. If a man finds a girl who is a virgin, who is not engaged, and seizes her and lies with her, and they are discovered, then the man who lay with her shall give to the girl's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall become his wife because he has violated her. He cannot divorce her all his days.
Okay, so let's go back and sort of walk through what this is saying here. Starting in verse 23, it has a...
So this might actually be a short video, because if they're going to go with the defense that they're going to go to the seduction parts of Exodus 20:21, or what we're going to have to pull that up. We'll pull it up when they get there. But that, if I remember correctly, I haven't done our word apologetics in quite some time. But if I remember correctly, the verse in Exodus 21, that is dealing with the case of consensual sex. I believe. I don't want to say that affirmatively because I'm going off of memory here, but I believe that is a case if there's some type of like, if it's consensual, then yeah, the dude has to marry her or something, but we'll go over it. But it's important to note that Exodus, oh, he has it pulled up here. Exodus 22:18 through 31. Let's pull that up real quick. Hold on. Exodus 22, he said, or was in there? Sorry, I gotta close all these ads. Oh my goodness. Exodus 22:18 through 31. Yeah. So I have Exodus 22:18 through whatever pulled up, and the first one is do not allow a sorceress to live. I think in some translations it says witch or whatever. I mean, if that there's no such things as witches and sorcerers, so stop it. But yeah, we'll get into this when they get into it. Let's go back to the Bible. But there is a passage about seduction, and I think that's consensual. And it's important to note that they make this distinction between consensual and non-consensual. Let's keep going.
Passage here where it talks about a girl who's a virgin but engaged to a man. Right there in verse 23, they have sex together. That means lies with her. Then they are to be taken out and stoned. And an engaged girl in those days was considered legally married. Betrothed is some of the translations, the old King James word. An engaged girl, or engaged man having sex with somebody that they're not engaged to.
Don't kill them. You don't kill them. You don't kill them, God. Come on, God. You got to do better than just killing them, man. You don't kill them. You don't kill them.
Is considered adultery, and that was a very serious crime. That's why they were stoned to death. And it says in the city, because you understand the cities in those days were different than today. The cities were kind of all on top of each other. There's maybe a piece of cloth over the window or the door, people living very close around you. You know, you can hear the people thinking in the next room. There'd be many people around. These would assume that there'd be many people around in a city because you never really got any privacy. It would be a simple matter of crying out to people and it could be saved. And so since this happened, it was considered adultery and therefore they were to be stoned. Of course, a judge would end up deciding that's an assumption in all of this. Then in verse 25, if we look at that, in the field, the man finds the girl and he forces her and lies with her, then only the man shall die.
I really hope, like I said, this actually might be a shorter video, because if they're gonna go with um seizes her, if they're gonna go with that doesn't mean R wording, then I have nothing to say. They're just lying. That's what it means. I hope they don't do that, because how can I engage with that besides calling them liars and trying to misinterpret what that passage actually means? I hope they don't do it. I hope they don't.
Die. And the assumption there is that it's out away from people. There's nobody to help her. There'd be nobody close by. The girl's innocent and she was forced or raped. So therefore, only the man gets killed for the rape. Again, still have to, the judges would work this out and decide, but that's the law. Then we get to the problem case, or at least the one that draws all the questions, which is in verses 28 and 29. If he finds the girl who is a virgin, who's not engaged, so not engaged, and seizes her and lies with her, and they're discovered, then the man who lay with her shall give the girl's father 50 shekels. She shall become his wife, and he can't divorce her. Now, where the problem comes in is
Because he has violated her.
in some of the English translations in Deuteronomy.
Oh, they are gonna do it. They are gonna do it. That's unfortunate.
Chapter 22, specifically verses 28 and 29, they use the word rape here, and they don't make the distinction between the terms. And so that's what I wanted to kind of do, Steve, is there's some clarity that needs to be brought to the case here about what it's actually saying. And
So this is gonna be boring, and I apologize. When people try to make this seem like it's not our wording, there's not much to say except that they're lying. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not lying, and that the modern English translations, which are many, got it wrong and used the wrong word. I still don't find this to be a very compelling argument, because this is God's book. These are God's laws. People should not be able to translate it incorrectly and spread it to the masses. That shouldn't be a thing that can happen. This is a failure on God's part. And that's about all I can say. So we'll keep going with it, but it might not be very interesting.
the English is, of course, a translation of the Hebrew. And with all due respect to the translators, some of the translations don't make a distinction in the terms here. What I want to do is to get a little bit technical here, in the sense, look at the word here in verse 25, where our New American Standard says, in the field, a man finds the girl who's engaged, and the man forces her. Well, that is the Hebrew word kazak, and in Strong's lexicon, it's numbered 2388, and that word means to overpower physically. In the NASB, or New American Standard, translates that correctly. It's to attack her, right? He overpowers her. He forces her. There's a different word used in verse 28. There, our New American Standard says seizes her.
So yeah, I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier. It's right here. It's on the screen. A verb meaning to lay hold of, to seize, to capture, to wield. And it's funny because they're going to try to make this distinction between these two words and these two terms, but they won't make the distinction for other things. And I wish they had the whole verse pulled up and I could show you what I was talking about, but they don't. Maybe they'll go back to it.
A different Hebrew word, tophas. It's Strong's number 8610.
Yeah,
and that
seize,
word just means
to
lay
capture.
hold of or grasp.
You can't, buddy, you can't do that. It doesn't mean to lay hold of or grasp. It says a verb meaning to lay hold of, to seize, to capture, to wield. It basically means to seize, to get possession of, to catch in its active usage, to grab hold of something, garment, to catch a lizard, to capture or seize a person. Now, are we talking about garments? Are we talking about lizards? Or are we talking about a person? Well, if you're R-wording somebody, we're talking about a person. So in which case would this make the most sense? To capture or seize? Don't try to make it sound like it's something different. To grab, to lay hold of. It's okay.
Standard says seizes her. a different Hebrew word, tophas. It's Strong's number 8610. And that word just means to lay hold of or grasp. And so the distinction here is that in verse 25,
So his argument is that for some reason, in all other instances, they say to lay with, but in this instance, they say to seize and lay with, to grab and lay with. It's like if a married or if an engaged person lays with another person, if a whatever. But in this instance, they say if he grabs, if he seizes, is he to capture and lays with her. They just added that in for funsies to confuse people, to be a little to as a little gag, where they at the time that they were writing this, where they're like, hey, in 3,500 years, boy, are these people going to have a problem. It's in there for a reason, and that reason is because it's referring to our wording.
he's actually raping her. He's forced her. But in verse 28, he's just seized her. He grabbed her. He took her. And the parallel passage over in Exodus, the one we read at the end of last time, Exodus 22:16, it uses the English word seduce.
So yeah, this is very important. And this is what I was talking about earlier. And I might end the video on this note because I don't want this to go too long. I want to try to keep my videos under 30 minutes. This is an important distinction. This is referring to consensual intercourse. This is not referring to our wording. Sorry. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged and lies with her, he must pay a dowry for her to be his wife. He must probably pay the father X amount of shekels and make and marry her because it was consensual. So why later do they not use the if it's referring to the same thing? Why in one instance is it seduce and in another instance is it to seize, to grab, to capture, to lay hold of? Well, because in one instance it's seduction and in one instance it's our wording. In both cases, whether it is forced or not, in both cases, the two are to get married and there's a fine to be paid. How stupid is okay, we're gonna go for maybe another minute or so, see what they have to say, but we're gonna end it shortly.
The man seduced her, which is the Hebrew word patho, which was Strong's 6601. So if you look them up in a good lexicon, you'll see the distinctions. And so what I'm building a case for here is that some of the English translations, when they translate Deuteronomy 22 verses 28 and 29, specifically the NIV translation, the New International Version, again, with all due respect to the translators, they got this one wrong.
No, sir. Not in just the NIV, which is the one I'm using. I like the NIV because it's written. I think it's written in such a way that it's easier to read, but let's pull up, what is it? Deuteronomy 22. Deuteronomy 22, bear with me for just a moment. 22, let's just say, you shall pay if man happens to be discovered. 22, 28. Let's see if I can just get a long list of different translations. So it's not going to pull up easily. Sometimes when you search it, okay, I don't want this to get boring. Just look up all the different translations. Actually, I'll let this play. Actually, I already have this list, but it'll take me forever to find it. But no, not just the NIV. Many translations say this or something very similar. Our wording, it doesn't matter. Okay, on that note, we're going to end it here. I will continue this series, but if he's just going to say, what's the argument that you could use against somebody who's saying, aside from the arguments that I've already made about the different, everything that I've already said, what are you supposed to say? If he's going to say that it actually doesn't mean our wording, Like, that's just a lie. The translators got it wrong. And mind you, the translators are Christians, and they're scholars, and they study the language, the culture. They don't just pick Joe Schmo off the street to translate the Bible and mass produce it. These are highly qualified people who figured that our word is the best word to describe this situation, and they got it right. But we're going to end this one here. We'll pick this back up. Hopefully, I mean, there's still a lot of this video left, so what are they going to, I don't know what they're going to talk about. But all right, if you made it this far, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.